welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Monday, February 18th, 2012. My name's Joe Hagmann. My co-host with me in studio is Doug Hagmann. Together we are the premier father and son radio show on the internet, also on some AM stations, and broadcast on Christians United Broadcasting Live. Yesterday we had a wonderful Sunday show for those of you who might have missed it with Nathan Liao, and really we were talking about Obama 2.0 and America's future. For those of you who did miss it, go back and download the archive or listen to the rebroadcast. It's a 3-hour show you're not going to want to miss, as a lot was talked about last night. And after the show, I talked to Mr. Liao, and he talked about coming back on again as we hit several issues we could not expand upon, but he's willing to come back on and do that. With that, I would like to bring on my co-host.
Yes, well, welcome, folks. Welcome to the program. It's great to be with you tonight, and thanks for handling the opening of the show. Folks, we've got a lot of news.
Yes, we do.
Information to get to tonight. I do have a couple of things I do want to say before, as we open the show. And by the way, Steve, if you're listening, the Eagle has landed, my friend. Of course, I could say something like John has a long mustache with that too. Followers of spy movies would know about that, but no, Steve. Thank you so much. In fact, I was going to contact you today, and I just did not have a chance. I just want to thank you very much for your wonderful gesture. Actually, it's something that one of our listeners, Steve, had done, and what a great guy. But
before you get into your open, I just want to mention a couple things we're going to get into tonight.
Yes. What are we going to talk about?
A bunch of different stories, some locally, most locally, on new gun bills that are making their way through state houses, and some that have passed. Also, a write-up on the national Dianne Feinstein gun laws. We're going to be talking about Fukushima, the Russian meteor.
What's Fukushima? I haven't heard about that.
There's a report about 44% of children having thyroid problems, and also reports on the radioactive water or radioactive waste being dumped into the water.
But does the corporate media even talk about Fukushima anymore? I mean,
no, those born after what 19
or 2000
don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
As sad as that is, we're going to be getting into drones, a lot on currency wars, and on the Justice Department, and on more ammunition buying by the Department of Homeland Security, and the drones tie into Homeland Security as well. And
there's a lot.
Obamacare and the Federal Reserve.
Well, folks, and this is one thing that Joe and I, before our shows, we talk about. What's important, and we look at what's important, or what's. I suppose we look at the entirety of the news out there, and then we look and say, well, all right, what's the most important aspects of things taking place that we need to discuss? And a lot of times, the white noise of headlines just overflows and overshadows what's really, really important. And I've got something I think that I'll get into here in a little bit. We're going to take a few. We're going to take we're going to talk about some news. And then there's something there's something that has been on my mind I want to talk about, and I don't know if I'll do that at the top of the second hour maybe, or at the bottom of this hour, but.
Before you get into your intro,
that's I think I'm going to wait because this is so important. This is so important. I really want everyone to hear it. I know a lot of people are late to the program. A lot of people are listening live, but it's just so important that I think that it's been on my mind, and I just want everyone to understand it. But go ahead, Joe. What were you going to say?
No, talking about the news, discerning what's important, what's not important amongst all this white noise that we call news.
Right.
Some advice that was given to me as a way to go about looking and seeing what's important is by reading the Bible first, by studying the Lord's Word first, and letting Him decide what's important. Basically, starting your day out with reading the Bible, different books, whatever you're led to read, and whatever sticks with you. you will see, and it will manifest with so much news every day anymore.
Well, and I
some being disinformation.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because there's so much information. What is your yardstick of determining what's important, what to talk about? And you're right. I think that you need the spiritual, divine intercession in order to really identify what is important. So how do you do that? Well, through prayer, through the study of the Bible. And I think that I mean, even if
we can't let the alternative media nor the mainstream media decide the agenda of what's important.
Exactly. And to me, that's look. I never used to pick up a Bible and read it, or look at. I never used to study the Bible in the morning, at night. No, never. But I find myself doing that more and more now, and I'll tell you why. And even if you're not, and I don't want to say if you're not into the Bible, that sounds so. Ugh. But even if, for whatever reason, you think you know Scripture, or you think you're solid in your Scripture, it to me, the time is short. I believe the time is short. And
if you're like me, you learn new things.
Yeah, right. And as a practical matter, look at it as a practical matter, as if we all have tools, no matter what your job is. Your tool could be a pen or a pencil. Your tool could be a hammer. It could be a nail gun. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But one thing that's constant is, because we live in the real world, one tool is the Bible. And I don't want to get too far down this road, but why not hone yourself on the tool for life? And that's the way I look at it. So for me, from a practical matter, that's kind of what the
title of the show tonight is Transforming Foundations. And I misspelled the title, and I had to go back and fix it, and thanks, Troy, for pointing that out. I didn't even know I did that. But Transforming Foundations it has a meaning in my mind when I created the title of many different things. We are seeing the foundations of America be transformed. We are seeing foundations of our reality be transformed for those who are aware and are seeking. And it's a good thing to see the foundations of our reality being transformed if they're not rooted in the Bible, if they're not rooted in God. And if they are, it's still okay to have our realities transform as we are breaking through learning. Now I see people learning at a rapid pace. People are hungry for knowledge. People are thirsty for spiritual wisdom and discernment. And the transformation on that aspect is good, whereas on everything else, we are being transformed from our culture, our society, our economy, the state that we live in, whether it's free or oppressive. And the most important foundation, as it says in the Bible, we must make our foundation on the Word and on our faith in Jesus Christ, like a stone that you build your house on, whereas the person who builds their foundation on sand would be sorely disappointed after a severe storm. Also tonight, something else we're going to be talking about, is there a biblical relationship with the naming of these winter storms that we're seeing, as there is another storm named Q, a winter storm named Q. And as I said earlier last week, that we're going to be seeing some more big East Coast storms. I think those are going to be coming up here pretty shortly, and they're going to be named. The continuation of these naming of the storms. What is that about? And is there more to it than meets the eye?
You know what? I think there is. And I think that we have to expose what the opposition's strategy is. And I think, honestly, I think that we're being able to do that with greater ability now. Through our understanding. I mean, it's one thing to get on a radio program and say, well, you know what, the Illuminati, it's the Council of 300, it's the CFR, it's Trilateral, it's the boys over there at the what's that place called over there again? Senior Moment. I'm having
which place?
The Owl.
The Bohemian Grove.
Thank you. That place. Wow. Help me.
Yeah.
Help me. But anyway.
Winter Storm Q.
But see, wait a second, though. See, you're right. I mean, if we understand the strategies behind these people, it's like I said, it's one thing to come on and name all these groups, but it's another thing to understand why. See, and I don't think a lot of people do this because, for example, and I'm just using this as an example, folks, the attacks of 9/11, 9/11/01. They happened on 9/11. Well, is there a reason why they selected that day? Well, yes. But look back to George Bush's speech of 9/11 of 1990. Was there a reason why he picked that day for his New World Order speech? Yes. Well, people will say, well, look at the connection between 9/11 of 90 and 9/11 of 01. That's 11 years difference. So you got 9/11,
9/11, 2012?
Yeah, and 9/11, 2000. Right. So 11 years separating 1990 to 01 and 11 years separating 01 to 12. And a lot of people will say, well, number one, some people will say that's meaningless. And I disagree based on everything that I've been shown by people a lot smarter, a lot more intelligent than me about the enemy, the opposition. And this, in fact, at the top of the second hour, I will get into something I think everyone needs to hear, and that is, it's about the guns. It's about exactly what the plans are and why we're seeing what we're seeing and why things are going the way they're going. But yes, let's see. So we like to at least establish that there is a reason behind the dates. Does that mean that we're going to know the dates? No. I'm definitely not saying that. But we're going to know the reasons for the dates that are selected because we know, and that will help us identify the enemy. And you might say, well, we know who the enemy is. We know who these people are. Well, not really.
We know who the real enemy is.
At the very root, yes.
But we don't know what form he'll take, what...
But we don't know the disciples of the Antichrist, if that's what you're getting to,
right?
Or the demonic people walking the streets of America and the streets of the world. We don't know. See,
and we don't know their capacity for what they can create in the physical, nor what they can do to us mentally and spiritually.
Well, see, and this bothers me because I got an email. I got a lot of emails, but I got one in particular that said, what happened to you? And I'm just summarizing here. I'm not reading it, but basically this person says, what happened to you? I knew you 5 years, 6 years ago. And
now you're insane.
Essentially, yes. You've got, in fact, it was 2 paragraphs. And when I say paragraphs, maybe pages of how insane and how over the top I've gone. All right. And this is from a person I respected. And
sounds like they have some discernment. I'm kidding.
You're within reach, right? So, and I got to thinking about this. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this program, and once again, I want to say hello to the folks in the diner that I shall not name because you're closed, and I understand that, and God bless you for listening. And you missed a spot there on the grill. Right there. You got it. Okay. No, it's almost as if you evolve into a different level of understanding, and that it's so important, I believe, because you mix the spiritual discernment with the facts and the actual things that are taking place. Or if you don't mix them, at least you use one as a balance to the other, and I think that's so important. But this person, like I said, wrote me a 2-page or 2-long paragraph, 2-page email saying that I've gone off the deep end. Well, no.
Are absolute or mean that there are singular answers to them. There are many conspiracies, and the word conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist has been demonized, really, and turned into almost a bad word. Oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Well, a lot of what is done in the world has been done through conspiracies.
Right.
I'd contend to say all of the major crimes, even if you believe the narrative of 9/11, it was a conspiracy because it involved more than one person.
Exactly. And thank you for pointing that out. And by the way, speaking of 9/11, and I'm going all over the board here, but I did order, and I want to thank you, each and every. We're a listener-supported broadcast, and I want to thank everyone who has helped us and who continues to help us stay on the air and even grow. But also, I was able to order the book from Dr. Judy Wood, about 9/11.
Where did the towers go?
And let me tell you something, folks. This is written in a textbook fashion and presented in a textbook fashion. I mean, I have seen books. I've seen textbooks. I've paid for textbooks that had less information in it than this book. I've paid twice as much for those. But this is an actual textbook, if you will, minus the tests at the end of the chapters. Actually, there are a few questions and such at the end of the chapters. But the reason, I'm glad you brought this up, because if you look at 9/11, 2001, those attacks being a hinge moment, then or a moment in time that changed the world as we know it today, then you should know about what the heck happened. And this book does it. So we're proud to have Dr. Judy Wood on the 26th. And but the bottom line is this: everything that we think we knew was true. There are things in there that there are events, there are people, there are things that have happened that are not true, and we can offer demonstrable proof to show that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, and we will.
9/11 Commission. We could build a case against that easily. I mean,
sure.
The information's out there. Anybody can find the answers for themselves, and it's not only that. It's what's in the 9/11 Commission. It's what's left out of the 9/11 Commission.
Right.
That's the most startling and damning evidence against these.
Yeah, and I've got the documents, and Joe and I were working today on the resource library. We're getting that up to snuff. I think you'll be proud of that, folks. As a one-stop shop for all of your PDF needs for information. So, but the one report that was heavily redacted shows the redactions. At least you can get an idea, and if you have a conversation about that, let's say with your family, you can show them, look, here's Exhibit A, for example, of complicity and conspiracy with respect to the Saudi government. Well, that extends into the Bush administration, and as well as the Obama administration. Some of the same people we have in power today were in power back then. So, but anyway, and that answers a lot of questions. But before... All right, I just want to say, Sharon, thank you very much for this, and this is why we, to me, this is why we are made, or this is why we're on the air. Dear Doug and Joe, I must tell you what you do for me. I am a child of Christ in a close walk with Him. However, I have no contact with other people like me. I'm a bit of a homebody because I don't have much in common with most people. But every day I do have you and your callers whom I just love. You are my fellowship along with the whole cast of The Watchmen. Thank you so much for what you do. Love in Christ, is Sharon. And I just want to say thank you. And folks, I mean, it's nice to get emails like that. You don't have to send emails like that, but when I got that, I just thought, wow, how great is that? That's just God bless you, Sharon, and everyone like Sharon. God bless you. You know that you're part of our extended family.
It's very uplifting.
Right. All right. We're
going to start with getting into some of this gun legislation that has popped up and that has been going around. First, there's a report from Russia Today. There is no logic to it. Experts slam new gun control bill. Congress is weighing a proposed ban on assault weapons introduced in hopes of curbing the spreading of epidemic of mass shootings in America. But the language of the law could still allow for a lot of heavy-duty firearms to legally be bought and sold.
Last year's tragic massacre in Newtown, Connecticut is being considered the catalyst in approving some sort of firearm law reform, but Second Amendment advocates have called into question the constitutionality of approving any such bill that could be seen as a direct attack on the right to bear arms.
Yeah, and notice the language in the beginning, opening. The ban on assault weapons bill is being introduced in hopes of curbing the spreading of this mass epidemic. But if approved, Feinstein's proposal would ban the buying and selling of 157 specific firearms designed for the military and law enforcement to use. The purpose is to dry up the supply of these weapons over time. Therefore, there is no sunset on this bill.
And think about that. No sunset. So in other words, forever. Go on.
It would still available for purchase in stores, however, would be roughly 2,200 other makes and models of assault weapons, in some cases nearly identical to the weapons being banned. And it goes on, this article goes on to quote many different business owners. There's no logic behind it.
Greg Donas, the president of a Massachusetts-based expert witness business and firearms ballistic laboratory, saying that that there's no logic to it. And by the way, this is part of. You want to know why this is going on? Top of the second hour is, and I'll tell you why it's going on.
A former FBI agent, John Hagmann, added that I can't imagine what the difference is. Talking about banning certain kinds of weapons while making other kinds remain legal based on attachments and accessories to that gun when you buy it. Some other quotes go, another fellow FBI agent, it's irrelevant. They're equally dangerous. Talking about the detachable, different kinds of models with pistol, whether they have a pistol grip or if they have detachable magazines that hold dozens of rounds. And the last quote here, the other purpose of the list was to have a high-profile way of assuring certain folks, including legislators, that we would not be going after their weapons that they use for legitimate purposes. That was said by a Lynette.
Yeah, I'm not sure of his first name or her first name.
He worked under President Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Exempted just under 375 weapons from being banned in the Clinton-era assault weapon.
Well, what gets me, Joe, is when you pull this article, and I think that this probably says it all here. Think about this. Dianne Feinstein. This in a quote from USA Today last month. Think about this, folks. She says, guns designed for military use are bought all over this country and are often used for mass murder. Now, often used for mass murder? Look, all right. This is really an uphill battle, she says. If anyone asks today, can you win this? The answer is we just don't know. Well,
how about this? The Chicago police chief. The Second Amendment is a danger to public safety.
So, wow.
Chicago's police chief, who previously blamed government-sponsored racism and Sarah Palin for Chicago's gun violence, declared that the lawful exercise of the Second Amendment was a threat to public safety. Chicago's embattled police superintendent dug himself deeper into a pit of controversy today by claiming that a lawful firearm owner are agents of political corruption. Appearing on a Chicago Sunday morning talk show, Superintendent Gary McCarthy expressed his convictions that firearm owners who lobby their elected representatives or who donate money to political campaigns are engaged in corruption that endangers public safety.
Wow.
What about people who donate to campaigns to overthrow our Constitution? Isn't that a danger to our public safety?
Well,
anyway, after totally disarming the citizens' right to redress grievances, McCarthy trained his constitutional wisdom on the Second Amendment. Despite recent court decisions to the contrary, McCarthy's opinion that the Second Amendment limits citizens to owning smooth-bore muskets. McCarthy went on to say he believes that the Second Amendment supports mandatory liability insurance for firearm owners and mandatory application of GPS tracking devices on all civilian firearms.
Right.
I think I read that in the Second Amendment somewhere. I don't remember where. But just remember this. This is from last week.
One issue that always boggles my mind is that the idea that a gun is a defensive weapon. That is a myth. A gun is not a defensive weapon. A gun is an offensive weapon used to intimidate and used to show power. Police officers do not carry a gun as a defensive weapon.
There you have it. That's from a California police chief.
Right.
Not a defensive weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, guess what? If you look at usaspending.gov, usaspending.gov, if you search ammunitions purchases, now you'll have to do this you'll have to go through and filter your search results on the right side of the page to specify your search by year, department, size of ordinance, and so on. Under the current administration, and I want to thank Sarge for pointing this out to me, the last 4 years, there has been $200 to $300 million spent on all departments, excluding the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice, for ammunition. That's $200 to $300 million, excluding DOD and DOJ. The average cost per round of small ordnance, which in their terms is 9 millimeters up to 308, is 11 cents per round. Included are ordinances of 30 millimeter and 75 millimeter. DHS total spending for 2012 and 2011 does average out to, you ready for this? $1.25 trillion per year. Okay, so it's actually a large portion, somewhere up to maybe a sixth of total U.S. spending for this type of. Now, it's not broken down that way. You're not going to be able to find that number or that equation or that fraction in that fashion or in that. But if you do the math yourself through usaspending.gov, and you do a search on ammo purchases, and you exclude, for example, DOD and DOJ, $200 to $300 million spent on all departments. But when you factor everybody in, the average is for 2012 and 2011 DHS, over $1 trillion.
Well, yeah.
Dollars.
We have news on other ammo today,
right?
As the Department of Homeland Security buys 2 billion rounds of ammunition. Now, this is total, I think, as they already had 1.6 billion. But this from Breitbart, something strange is going on. Federal non-military agencies have bought 2 billion rounds of ammunition in the last 10 months. The Obama administration says that federal law enforcement agencies need the ammunition for mandatory quarterly firearm qualifications and other training sessions. Radio show host Mark Levin is suspicious. He commented, to provide some perspective, experts estimate that the peak of the Iraq War, American troops were firing around 5.5 million rounds per month. At that rate, the Department of Homeland Security is now armed for a 24-year war in Iraq, a 24-year insurrection. Law enforcement and national security agencies, they play out multiple scenarios. I'll tell you what I think. They're simulating the collapse of our financial system, the collapse of our society, and for potential for widespread violence, looting, killing in the streets, because that's what happens when an economy collapses. I suspect that just in the case our financial situation, our monetary situation collapses, and following it, the civil society collapses, that is the rule of law. They want to be prepared. I know why the government's arming up. It's not because it's not because there's going to be an insurrection. It's because our society is unraveling. And also, we have out of Colorado, the Colorado House has approved a bill limiting magazine capacity Colorado House Democrats approved a large-capacity magazine ban and are considering to expand background checks in a debate that has drawn attention from the White House. The Democratic House voted Monday to ban large-capacity magazines, placing a 15-round for firearm and 8-round for shotgun limit. The proposals are responses to the mass shootings in Aurora and Connecticut. Republicans oppose the measure, saying they're restricting Second Amendment rights and won't prevent mass shootings. Vice President Joe Biden called for Democrats Friday during a day-long debate on the measures. 2 freshman legislators in moderate districts were among those called. Other proposals expected to get a vote include banning concealed firearms on colleges and requiring that gun purchasers pay for their own background checks. The Senate still needs to consider the proposal. And I want to play this quick clip here. This is from the Obama Justice Department, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Ask Obama's Experts. Obama's Justice Department, gun control won't work without mandatory confiscation.
President Obama gives a good speech. And when you listen to him talk about new gun laws, you may think he sounds reasonable. But what happens when you look at the details behind the president's policies? How would they actually work? Let's look at what Obama's own experts have to say. This internal Justice Department memo says, quote, an assault weapons ban is unlikely to have an impact on gun violence. Unlikely, that is, unless it comes with something else. Obama's experts say that a gun ban, like the one being debated right now in Congress, will not work without mandatory gun buybacks. Mandatory gun buyback. That's government confiscation of legal firearms owned by honest citizens. And what about Obama's call for universal background checks? His own experts wrote that the effectiveness of universal background checks depends on, quote, requiring gun registration. Requiring gun registration with the federal government. That's an illegal abuse of privacy and freedom unprecedented in our history. So, the Obama administration believes a gun ban will not work without mandatory gun confiscation. And universal background checks will not work without requiring national gun registration. Still think President Obama's proposals sound reasonable? Call Congress and tell them to reject President Obama's gun control agenda and to get serious about protecting our kids, prosecuting criminals, and fixing our broken mental health system. The men and women of the National Rifle Association are responsible for the content of this message.
You're muted. An interesting message indeed. Yes.
Sorry about that. You know, I'm working with new equipment, different equipment that is, and I apologize for my missteps there. But interesting message, and we're going to go through some more gun news because this is basically at the crux of what is going to be taking place, folks. You need to know what the strategy is when you hear about, well, the gun efforts or the gun ban efforts. You need to know what's behind all this, and I'm going to tell you what's behind all this, and what I believe based on information told to me, and Joe told to us, what we believe is taking place with everything that we're talking about. At the top of the next hour, everything that we're talking about, we're going to draw this together with respect to the guns, and I think you'll have a better understanding what's taking place.
Yeah. We talked about this gun law that they were going after in Washington State. Washington State bill would make almost all gun owners criminals. Well, a new article today, a misstep in gun bill could defeat the effort. One of the major efforts in Olympia this session calls for the sheriff to inspect the homes of assault weapon owners or gun owners. The bill backers say that was a mistake. Forget police drones flying over your house. How about police coming inside once a year to have a look around? As Orwellian as that sounds, it isn't hypothetical. The notion of police home inspections was introduced in a bill last week in Olympia. That's part of one of the major gun control efforts that pains me. It seemed in recent weeks lawmakers might be headed towards some common sense regulation of gun sales, but then last week they went too far. By mistake, they claim, but still too far.
I just want to say this. In place of assault weapons, that term, assault weapons, we'll call them tyranny response weapons. Tyranny response weapons. Go ahead, Joe.
They always say, we'll never go house to house to take your guns away. But then you see this and you have to wonder. That's no gun right absolutist talking, but Lance Palmer, a Seattle trial lawyer and self-described liberal who brought the troubling Senate Bill 5737 to my attention. It's the long-awaited assault weapons ban introduced last week by 3 Seattle Democrats. Responding to the Newtown school massacre, and isn't it every single gun article we read?
Responding to the Newtown massacre? And
yeah.
Yes.
That's all they say.
Well, that or the Aurora shooting, it seemed to be, or the shooting of Gabrielle Giffords. And
isn't it nice
yes.
that she paraded herself out there for the anti-gun legislation?
Would you expect anything less, though?
Yes, I would.
Because
they were members of the NRA,
but
they were constitutional upholding people.
Right.
And all of a sudden, an about-face? Why?
Well,
I mean, if you were a victim of gun violence...
For the same reason that we see the Sandy Hook Children's Choir singing at the inauguration, the Super Bowl, and folks,
imagine if somebody took Gabby Giffords what she said and turned it into a pro-gun ad, or that people were heckling her live, as the news did with the father of a Sandy Hook child who testified in front of a congressional or Senate hearing,
right. And
with tears in his eyes, saying the gun is not the problem, it is the makeup of our fabric of our society that is the problem.
Correct.
And yet the media took audio and video clips and manipulated them as though when the man was speaking, he was being mocked.
That's right. It wasn't until a couple of bloggers, or one blogger in particular, had called them out on it, that they said, "Yeah, that's true. Okay, it was edited, and gee, we apologize." Can you imagine the uproar if it would have been the other way around? If it would have been us or someone else doing that? Of course.
Now, in this Washington State bill, they are trying to ban the sale of semi-automatic weapons that use detachable ammunition magazines, which would be pretty much all of them. Clips that contain more than 10 rounds would be illegal. And it goes on, in order to continue to possess an assault weapon that was legally possessed on the effective date of this section, the person possessing shall safely and securely store the assault weapon. The sheriffs of the county may, no more than once per year, conduct an inspection to ensure compliance with this subsection.
Now, we talked about this last week, but for the new listeners or the people that didn't catch last week's show, in Seattle, and this is their mindset, and folks, you have to understand their mindset. In Seattle, all the coffee shops, I think it was Seattle or maybe Spokane, but Washington State, we'll just go there.
Yeah.
They had all the coffee places out there having espresso machines. And apparently they've got the espresso machines, obviously they've got to superheat the liquid, and they passed a law to inspect the boilers or the heating elements of these machines. It all sounded really good. It was for public safety, so we didn't have a malfunction and an explosion, and then people hurt, and there was a reason for it. And people all got behind the bill, and basically what they said was, "Look, we're gonna send a safety inspector out to each coffee shop, to make sure that these machines were functioning properly." Well, guess what? They realized, wait a minute, you know what? This costs gas, it costs time, it costs personnel. So
that's no worry to the federal government as they print money. And
no, it was because it was a state government initiative, and they found out that the state government, they found out, wait, this is costly. So what happened? You know what they did?
Issued from the federal government?
No, wrong answer. You know what they did? They charged the coffee shop.
The business.
The coffee shop, and they charged them like $1,000 per inspection. For the law, and even see the people. Freedom. But wait, the people, even the initially, and this is the important part of the story. Even the coffee shop owners who were in favor of, okay, we're in compliance. We've got nothing to hide. We're in compliance. So bring it on. Let them inspect my coffee shop or my equipment. But then they get the bill. So now that's, look, I understand a coffee making machine and a tyranny response weapon are two different things. But the concept, the mindset is what I'm trying to point out to you. That's the mindset. But go on.
Yeah. Skipping over the rest of this, just getting to the meat and potatoes here. We have bills in the Washington state. We have bills in Colorado. Also, Minnesota is pushing gun confiscation bill similar to Missouri. So we have Minnesota and Missouri pushing a gun confiscation proposal that looks similar to one proposed by Democrats in Missouri. The measure uses language almost identical to Missouri's proposal. Say anybody, law-abiding gun owners, relinquish their assault weapons before September 1st, 2013. Anybody who doesn't, well, you will be a felon. We have Iowa bill now that would infringe on your right to keep and bear arms, has been filed and will be moving through Iowa legislature. House File 163, introduced longtime anti-gun advocate Bruce Hunter, would ban the sale, transfer of large capacity feeding devices effective immediately if the bill passed and enacted into law. Large capacity feeding device is defined as an ammunition feeding device with a capacity to accept more than 10 rounds. Also, House File 164 would criminalize all private transfers of firearms, require background checks to be conducted by an FFL on all private firearm transfers with no exceptions, and allows the dealer to collect fees in the process. It would provide for limitless fees or taxes for transfers in order to fuel the erroneous bureaucratic process, and allow the Department of Safety to create rules necessary on how to implement the system. Just another form of universal registration. Also, it would go on to ban or restrict types of ammunition used while hunting. And you get the idea. So we have Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, New York, California, Chicago, Washington, New York City, already with strict gun control laws. And now we have the Department of Homeland Security continuing to purchase bullets, and now they have announced their plan for public safety drones. I don't know how many of you guys saw this, but the Department of Homeland Security is advancing its plan to use surveillance drones for public safety applications.
It's always for public safety. It's always for the children. It's always for that purpose. It's anytime you hear public safety or for the children or for the environment, you better run, or the hairs on the back of your neck better stand up, because it's not about that.
Don't you feel safer knowing that they will have thousands of spy drones in the sky? I mean, maybe if you could be on the street getting robbed and a spy drone could see you. Maybe you could be in a gun battle and a spy drone could be watching to send help.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they haven't even done that for our own military. So,
you know, I know you brought this drone issue up, but before we move off the gun issue, and again at the top of the second hour, I'm going to provide the listeners with some information that both Joe and I came upon, and I think it's important to hear what the strategy is with respect to the gun issue, what the ultimate objective is here. Because we heard, again, before moving to the drones, we heard from multiple states about their different initiatives, the laws that they're trying to enforce. Well, what's the deal with this in light of or in contrast with the federal initiatives? What's going to happen here? And we have, I believe, Joe and I, as the Hagmann report, I believe that we have been given the template. And so you don't want to miss a second hour. But before we move on to the drones, let me just say this. I don't know if any of you have seen this. I believe it's recent. I believe like as recent as perhaps today, a New York peace officer on commitment and oath. I don't know how many
peace
people...
officer?
Peace, like police, but peace officer, okay. Sheriff's deputy.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how many people have been to Saratoga County, New York. It's a beautiful place.
Saratoga is very nice.
Yeah, and I have to say that, of course, it's a center for the progressive mindset, but it's just beautiful country up there, and we've done our share of work.
Yeah,
you know. But anyway, there was a letter that was, and I'm not going to read the letter in its entirety, but I just want to bring it to your attention. In fact, it can be found on the Oath Keepers website. I've got to tell you, when I read this, and it's rather lengthy. Like I said, I'm not going to read it, but except for a paragraph. I felt. This is very interesting, and I think it plays right into what we're talking about. The letter starts out with, again, this is from, just to be sure, this is from David P. Jones, Deputy Sheriff of Saratoga County. And it really stands as an individual example of the character and honor held by many of the deputies of Saratoga County, New York, and it should be an example for others. Now, that sheriff's department, by the way, they've written its own statement opposing New York's Redcoat Governor Cuomo's SAFE Act. And I say Redcoat Governor because that's what he is.
He's worse than a redcoat.
Well, yes. I mean, he rushed through this legislation and forged into law this despicable skirting of the second legislative process, and of course they attack on the Second Amendment. But Oath Keepers salutes this sheriff's department. But listen to this real quick here. This deputy sheriff says this. I'm not one who seeks or intentionally brings attention to myself. I'm one who participates, but does so from the rear of the crowd. My articulation skills are lacking, and in a crowd I will often pronounce a word with error or stutter through a phrase. I have known the sheriff of Fulton County for some time now. I call Tom Laurie a friend. I understand and agree with his philosophy, and I'm motivated by his passion. I, if allowed, would like to stand next to Sheriff Laurie and do whatever I can to assist in the completion of this mission. I will stand in the shadows no more. And folks, this is what it's coming to. And again, top of the second hour, this is all part of it. But listen to that. I will stand in the shadows no more. I'm an Army veteran and have been a police officer for nearly a quarter of a century. I've taken all my oaths freely and accepted the responsibility of an oath as a promise to those I serve. In today's society, it seems that an oath is now nothing more than a ceremony of useless words and phrases, and they no longer are binding to those who have repeated them. Our government was formed as a representative government for the people and by the people. Boy, it doesn't sound like he's lacking any articulation. Okay, our elected representatives should mirror the beliefs and morality of the people they serve. Now, again, I'm not going to go through the entire letter, but I will scroll down here to the end part of this. He states, "My wife and I have tried and believe we have accomplished to teach our children their national heritage and what the meaning of our forefathers' written words actually mean. And how many of you have done that? How many, well, perhaps most of you listening, but how many people do you know who have done that? I dare say not many. Now, we have taught our children not to lie. We have taught our children not to steal, not to cheat, not to associate with those who do. Okay? We have taught our children that morality counts. And where does that, where have we seen that before? Well, we've taught that there's a right and a wrong, as well as a good and an evil. And the saying in our home is, do what you know to be right. And when our children leave our home unaccompanied by an adult, they do that to the best of our knowledge. We are all hypocrites in one way or another, but we have taught and shown as examples our children that after we're gone, we will be only remembered for our character. And here's the last bit. Let's all stand together and in front of the crowd.
We're offline.
Sign, David Jones.
We're offline.
Can you hear me, folks? I'm not connected to the chat, so I don't know if...
I don't know.
Folks, can you hear us?
Hold on. It looks like no.
Can you hear us? Hello?
Let's see.
Yes, I hear you, says Chrissy. Yes, tribulation.
How are we? We're not connected.
How can this be? How can this be? Indeed. Wow. Some of you can, some of you can't. Hey, Doug, no sound. Okay. Well, now. Let's see if we can bring this back up, Ken.
Yeah, I don't know.
You were on video, no sound, Chrissy says. All right, folks, can you hear us now? Let me see here.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Okay. All right, for those of you who did not have sound, hopefully you got it back. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear us back? Can you hear us now?
Sound is back. Okay.
All right.
And you were talking about something very important. I don't know if you want to start over, but I have an audio of Dr. Ben Carson talking about what he said at the prayer breakfast.
Yes.
And what leads him on a daily basis. So we're going to go to that when we come back. This is a 4-minute clip. It's very important to hear this clip and what this gentleman's saying. And we're going to come back from this and go to break, and then come back on the other side at the top of the hour and make sure everything's all right on our end of connections. So here is a quick audio of Mr. Carson on the Sunday Spotlight.
Now time for our Sunday Spotlight, this week shining brightly on Dr. Ben Carson, one of the top pediatric neurosurgeons in the country, who made quite a splash with his recent appearance at the National Prayer Breakfast, where with President Obama at his side, he had some choice words on political correctness and even the flat tax. Listen.
We've reached a point where people are afraid to actually talk about what they want to say because somebody might be offended. What about our taxation system? When I pick up my Bible, you know what I see? I see the fairest individual in the universe, God, and He's given us a system. It's called tithe. Now, we don't necessarily have to do it 10%, but it's principle.
We're seeing the Wall Street Journal had a lead editorial saying, Ben Carson for president. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Typically, prayer breakfast speeches don't get this kind of attention. You've got more than 2 million views on YouTube of this speech. What do you make of this reaction?
Well, I make of it the fact that before I gave that talk, I prayed and asked God to give me wisdom, what to say, what would resonate, what would be important. And, I don't think it was particularly political.
Some people do.
I know they do. But to be able to express an opinion about something that is problematic. I'm a physician. I like to diagnose things. And, I've diagnosed some pretty significant issues that I think a lot of people resonate with. And, I've just been kind of overwhelmed by the response, particularly a lot of older Americans who say they had given up on America. And, what we really need is to be able to tone down all the rhetoric and be able to discuss things in a reasonable and rational way and come to conclusions rather than one side or the other side winning. If we can do that, I think there's real power in that.
In your book, which came out more than a year ago, it was down quite a ways on Amazon. Now it's number 3 on the Amazon bestseller list. But I've got to tell you, I have never heard of somebody talking about the flat tax at a prayer breakfast. That was a pretty interesting...
I prefer to refer to it as the proportional tax, because, of course, it comes from the concept of tithing. If you make $1 gazillion, you pay $1 gazillion. If you make very little, you pay very little. But everybody contributes.
What do you make of President Obama as a leader?
I think he's a very talented politician.
That sounds like faint praise. You obviously disagree with him. I mean, that was clear in your...
There are a number of policies that I don't believe lead to the growth of our nation and don't lead to the elevation of our nation. And, what I would like to do, I don't want to sit here and say all of his policies are bad, but what I would like to see more often in this nation is an open and intelligent conversation, not people just casting aspersions at each other. I mean, it's unbelievable to me, the way people act like third graders. And if somebody doesn't agree with them, they're this and they're that, and and it comes from both sides, and it's just so infantile. And I don't know how we're ever going to make any progress.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Before you go, I got to ask you. So, the Wall Street Journal, Ben Carson for president. You're retiring as a surgeon this summer. What do you make of it? Are you going to get into politics?
It's not my intention to do that, but as I always say in every part of my life, I'll leave that up to God.
That sounded far from ruling it out. Thank you very much, Dr. Ben Carson. Appreciate your time. You can read an excerpt from Ben Carson's book, America the Beautiful, at our website, abcnews.com/thisweek.
And there you have it. Dr. Ben Carson, the guy who gave the gave a speech at the prayer breakfast.
Prayer breakfast speech, yeah.
I think on the 27th. Talked about what he is led to do and what leads him to act on that, and that is the guidance from the Lord. And I think that if we had more people like Dr. Carson who thought like Dr. Carson and who acted like Dr. Carson, we'd live in a much better society.
Amen.
But with that, we're up against our first break. We will be taking calls this show. I don't know if we'll do it in the next hour or save it for the third hour. But the number is 661-244-9839 for those of you who want to line up. As I said, not sure if we'll take calls for another hour, but call in and get on in line if you want. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Monday, February 18th, 2013. We'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's truly going on.
Special for our listeners.
If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got to suggest.
Yeah, just got to chime in.
In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world.
The truth is, we'll come back tomorrow if you can get here early.
Let's put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks,
hi, guys.
Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth Squad specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Oh, my goodness. All right, I'll bring us back then. I'm good. I'm ready to go right now. Might as well just go right in there after a hot mic. See, a hot mic moment. I'm actually mimicking Obama, and that's the beauty of live radio, and that's the beauty because we're not really professional talk show hosts. So, and
we just play one on the radio,
right? And I'm still working on the red, green, and yellow lights that are associated with my devices here. So
it's amazing. We can go from using equipment with 600 buttons on it, and you being just as confused as equipment with 2 buttons on it.
Well, have pity on me. I got to tell you, and I don't know how many people have done. I'm sure, folks, you understand. This morning, woke up, and I got to tell you, I was chilly, a little chillier than normal, waking up at 4 a.m. and I realized that there was a problem. We had no heat, and no heat in the house at all. And I thought, wow, it's cold, nippy in here, and looked, and the furnace was DOA. It wasn't running, so I did what every normal man of the house would do, and that's to start breaking up our wood furniture and starting a fire in the middle of the living room and warming up the house. No, I didn't really do that, but so it was really kind of a bad day after. It was a long night last night, and then this morning, with the 4 in the morning with no heat, and I think it was like 52 degrees inside my house, and had to chip off the ice off of my nose. But I got to tell you, it was quite the adventure. So, and of course, you call up the furnace guy, and a service call now. Service calls. I was thinking, I don't know, $40. Yeah, that must have been like 1980.
Hey,
what?
Well, what did we say last week? You have furnace problems. It means it's a good thing. At least you have a furnace.
That's right. That's right.
And you don't sleep in your car like you make me do. So.
Well,
but
you know what? You make a good point there because praise God for the. How many people don't have furnaces? How many people don't have homes? How many people are living in their cars? How many people we have? even the worst of our days, we've got it better than most of the people out there.
Yeah.
And we have to be thankful for everything we do have. But, folks, I just want to kind of go over some things here real quick with respect to what is taking place. Because I had contacted one intelligence source I really, really, really trust. And I said, can you explain to Joe and I something? Well, we see the federal government doing things, attempting to pass laws that aren't going to pass about gun control. Then we see the states coming in, and it's everyone is attempting to ban guns, but they're doing it with different initiatives from different sides, different angles, different people.
Turn in your guns for a gift card or some chocolates or some food, or turn in your guns or get arrested. We'll have the cops come to your house.
Yeah. So our questions, please tell us what you think is taking place here, or what you think the ultimate objective is, because we're seeing a lot of parallel initiatives. Are we not, folks? Are we not seeing a lot of parallel initiatives right now taking place? I think we are. With the states, different, same agendas, just different people, different areas of the country. Well, my question what do you see taking place here? I mean, we know the end game scenario. We know what the opposition, the people who want to hurt us into this wood chipper, we know what they want to do. Basically.
They want us gone, and they want the resources.
But okay, folks, so here's where I'm going to ask you, or invoke, or ask that you use your mental mind picture here. Imagine a golf course, if you will, a perfectly green, well-manicured golf course that for some reason the groundskeeper didn't have the weed control application done that spring. And imagine, as you look out over this golf course, after, we'll say you're looking out over this golf course, I don't know, let's say on a Thursday, and they last mowed it that past weekend. Without the weed control application, what do you see? If it's in the spring or summer, we'll say the summertime, what do you see? You see, for example, dandelions. Dandelions sticking up all over the place. And the dandelions are far and above the height of the grass. So they're readily identifiable, are they not? So as you look out over the golf course, you're seeing dandelions. And some are maybe an inch or half an inch above the height of the grass. Some are maybe an inch over the height of the grass, but you see them. Now imagine that same golf course that has been treated, and you see maybe one or two stray dandelions here or there. Well, using that analogy, let the dandelions grow. That's what they're doing, is they're letting the dandelions grow. The government is letting the dandelions grow, and we, the people that are the most outspoken of all of the groups, are the dandelions. We are the dandelions in this sea of green, and we're still of the blades of the grass, and we are identifiable. See, right now, there might be 1, 2, 3 dandelions, the most outspoken of the outspoken, or 4 or 5, or however many. But all of the dandelions are not shown, or showing right now. So wait for a season until all of the dandelions are above the grass. And that way, you can mow them all down at the same time when you cut the grass. This is exactly how my intelligence source described what is taking place right now, because what the opposition, if you want to call this the Illuminati, or if you want to call this those who are involved in the push for a one world governance, they are letting the dandelions shoot up. Why? So they can identify them and mow them down all at once, because it's easier that way. It's easier that way. And this is an intelligence source who had interviewed somebody, by the way, just to give you an example of his context. Interviewed somebody who had massacred people in a village with a machete, but yet had arms, guns, a long weapon, if you will, on him. And the question was posed, why did you use a machete as opposed to a long gun? Or, yeah, why did you use a machete instead of your AK-47? He replied that, well, didn't want to waste the bullets, and after all, a machete doesn't cost very much. I mean, the machete's already paid for, so that there's no expense. Think about that mentality. But once again, think about the dandelions. We, you and me, the people who want to uphold the Constitution, we're the dandelions. And you see, when they take the lawnmower and mow us down, at first they're going to villainize us as bad people. And are we not seeing that now in certain ways? Certainly we are. We are being villainized. Now, think about by the way, they want us to reveal ourselves. That's their strategy. They want us to reveal ourselves. So they don't have to go looking. We're going to stand up and, like that dandelion above the grass, we're going to be identifiable. And like the dandelions in a golf course, we are the bad guys and women. We are the people. We're the bad people. Okay, thank you. Think about the Revolutionary War. Think about that. The number of people involved in the active fighters in the Revolutionary War. What was it, Joe? 2, 3, 4, 5%, maybe, something like that.
That's what they say.
Okay, that took up arms against the British. Well, and by the way, in the vilification of gun owners, of Second Amendment proponents, this is something that everyone should remember. It is not reality that counts. It's people's perception of reality that counts. And they are using that perception through media, through television, to alter that perception. Mm-hmm. Okay, now.
And they've been doing that for decades now, successfully, uncontested.
And it's working, isn't it? It's really, at the very heart, it's really a global mind control initiative that is taking place. And but here's the strategy, according to the source I have. At some point in time, we're going to see, as we've talked about, an economic collapse in this country. But before we do, or perhaps concurrent with that economic collapse, and part of the villainization process of gun owners, of proponents of Second Amendments, and we had, in fact, my DHS source had alluded to this last year, that in fact it was copied or mentioned by a congressman, or a state congressman from Tennessee, and made all the rounds, and it was just incredible. But think about this. Right now, where do we stand? We had the Aurora shooting, which is just rife with questions and inconsistencies. We have Sandy Hook, where that's full of questions, and the evidence is being withheld from the American people. Again, it's because it's for the children, to keep them. I mean, it's
of course,
but there is a big, giant button, a reset button, if you will, or an activation button that we have yet to see pushed, and that activation button will very possibly be, and listen carefully, very possibly be an event that will blow Sandy Hook out of the water, blow Aurora out of the water, blow all the totality of mass shootings out of the water. And
it might not be a mass shooting.
No, it won't be a mass shooting.
It might not be a economic collapse. It could be.
Well, I mean, not this, but go on.
It could be something to the extent of which we have never seen before, nor would we understand when we see it. Or have the. I mean, there are many plans out there, as you say, contingency plans upon contingency plans. Now, anything from an EMP, which would cut off communications between people. It could be in the USA, it could be in the North America, it could be across the world. We could see what Tom Horn talks about, a fake alien threat. Ronald Reagan talked about it at the UN. They have plans. The Defense Department, the Vatican, from all governments have plans to fight some kind of extraterrestrial threat, or at least they have announced these plans and budgets for the defense purposes of these plans.
Well, see, now you heard the same information I heard from the intelligence source that we're talking about, and you're right. But see, that's going to be brought out after an event that will overshadow everything we've seen to this point. Now, folks, think about what kind of event involving a gun, an assault weapon, or a rifle, in their terms, assault rifle, in their terms, not ours, that would cause the nation, if not the world, to be an uproar, to change the minds of many, and also to villainize the people who would adhere to the Constitution. What event could possibly do that? Any ideas?
Well, it could be natural. It could be man-made. It could be along the lines of a political false flag to a political assassination, to a attempted assassination. There are many ways, and I know which one you were talking about from the hints you just gave. And one of those was what you were talking about, a attempted political assassination or coup.
Now, we all know, but wait a second, though. We all know the devil, will use a human, and if we look at Scripture, I think this is backed up in Scripture, don't ask me to quote it, but Satan will use a human being, and when they're done with that human being, cast him aside. When that person has fulfilled all that the devil needs that person to do, it's over. Done. Now think about what would happen. And in this case, I am throwing this onto the table. Think about what would happen if one of our most highly revered elected officials, whether a false flag or something real, Kennedy and the attempt on Ronald Reagan in 1981. I mean, think about that. In this environment. Now, in that context, between now and then, they know who the dandelions are. They know who to vilify. They know who to say, look, it's because of you and you and you and you that the love of your guns has caused this. This is why this happened. And how many people collectively will be swayed by that? And of course, at that point, certainly Sandy Hook, what a tragedy. And all the other shootings, tragedies. But now you've got a combination of perhaps race, of perhaps race, but you also have a perceived martyrdom. Is it too far out to think that? I don't know. But you know, is it within the realm of possibility that it would be a false flag type of event or an orchestrated event? Sure, it would be. Am I too far out in the weeds thinking this?
No.
No,
as we know,
not.
In the times we live in, that there will be great deceptions brought upon mankind. Those deceptions would be perpetrated on not only the unbelievers who are already deceived,
right,
but mainly the believers.
And I go back to
the point where, if it were possible, even those written in the book of life, the elect, could be deceived. They would be.
Exactly. Now, I go back to the statement I made earlier. And again, these are not my words, a lot of them, but I'm putting them together in kind of a coherent, or hopefully coherent, format for your consideration, for your review. Put them in the back of your mind, think about them, and think like the enemy, think like the people who are against freedom and against the Constitution. But see, it's not reality. It's the perception of reality that counts. And so when you've got let's say an attempt, or what would appear to be an attempt on a very high-profile person, on a highly regarded person, even if that regarded's only among the 47, 48%, whatever. But think about that would do. Because remember what their strategy is as well. It's to divide and conquer. Hey, let's identify the people and let them shoot it out. Let them go against each other.
When we talk about identifying people, I have a clip here, and this is one of the ways they can go about identifying people, and through the internet, through different social platforms on the internet. But you don't even need to be on the internet.
You don't, but all you need to do is show up at a rally.
If you have an ID, if you have a phone conversation with a family member about any political view, I mean, you could be talking to yourself as you walk down the street.
Well, that's right.
But as far as social media goes, this is a video I found today.
Okay, hold on.
Which will be very interesting to many people. When
before you're
ready,
that,
let me know.
Yeah, just let me tell you this, and then I'll finish up on the other side of this video. Before you do that, think when you hear this audio from this on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. There is a link to a video of a rally in Albany. Stuart Rhodes was there, and he led the Second Amendment rally. If you look at the buildings behind the podium, understand one thing, and this is what I was told, and I do have a secondary verification of this, that there were federal agents inside that building, because of course they knew ahead of time the permits were given and all of this, but there were video recorders and digital cameras photographing everybody at this rally. For what purpose? For identification. Now, that should not scare anyone. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to tell you that your presence, your words are being recorded in history, and recorded by the feds. But what I'm saying is they're also being recorded in history, and we doggone well better be on the good side of history.
Even with simple things, your movements, your political affiliation, your voting history, what magazines you subscribe to, your purchases, those things. I mean, anything can be identifiable, or help them identify you in who they want to label you as.
And they're looking for, Joe, and I'll tell you this, we talked about this earlier, they're looking for trends. They're not necessarily looking at specific, because they don't have the personnel. People will say, well, that's impossible because they don't have, they don't have enough people to look at the stuff. No, you're right. They're looking at trends.
Yeah, and here's a thought for people like me who use Twitter. I use Twitter to promote the show and to send out different news items.
That's right.
Same thing on Facebook. But listen to this, guys.
It's part of the social media landscape that has revolutionized the way we communicate. Twitter allows users to broadcast their thoughts 140 characters at a time. From the very first tweet to declaring historic presidential victories. The downright dumb, all of it, has been stored at the Library of Congress.
With the popularity of smartphones and iPads, users can tweet pretty much anywhere at any time. And the Library of Congress is taking note of the way people are communicating and and other publications. Social media is being stored as a part of history.
It began in 2010 when Twitter agreed to hand over to the library every tweet since the social media site launched. The tweets keep being stored. With an estimated 500 million tweets per day, it's a massive undertaking.
Basically taking and putting it into some kind of storage. Well, you're talking about 150 billion tweets.
Well, now that the library has collected this massive archive, it's not clear what they're going to do with it.
How do you search that? How do you catalog that and split it into searchable pieces of content? And they haven't been able to figure that out yet.
The library's blog says, quote, although the library has been building and stabilizing the archive and has not yet offered researchers access, we have nevertheless received approximately 400 inquiries from researchers all over the world. So far, the library tells us the goal is for researchers to have access to the database, not the general public. And we asked, are there any limits to what information the library can distribute? The library tells us they've set a few. No tweets newer than 6 months old will be handed over to researchers. The tweets can't be used for commercial purposes, and researchers can't make a big chunk of tweets available for downloading on their website. Still, questions remain. If you delete a tweet, will the library still store it? And how easily can law enforcement obtain your tweets?
If people are worried about privacy, I'm pretty sure the NSA, Homeland Security, is already going through a lot of this stuff.
So perhaps the takeaway is think before you tweet, because it's going to be stored right here at the Library of Congress in Washington. Live law, RT.
Sorry for whatever sound issues was coming through on that video. I don't know, or audio. I don't know why there would be issues with the audio, but either way, every single tweet that has ever been tweeted is now stored and has been stored at the Library of Congress.
Right, and that once again is the strategy of the people in power, and we, both Joe and I, wanted to reaffirm. Who are we fighting, or what are we fighting? Or aside from the demonic aspect of things, what's behind, or who's behind what we're seeing, and how soon can we see things take place?
I'd just like to add, who are we fighting? I would say the biggest enemy is ourselves, our human.
Our human frailties, of course, yes, and our we all have inherent flaws and faults and things, but in practicality, or in this particular situation, we are fighting people who believe that they are better than us, and whether you want to call them the Illuminati, whether you want to call them the globalists, for the purpose of this, we're going to call them the globalists who are members of the Illuminati. Now, you might think, well, geez, this is really crazy talk, but once again, it's not important what you think. It's not important what I think. It's important what they think. And the CFR members and the Trilateral Commission members, these groups exist for a reason, and Skull and Bones, and okay, these groups, they exist for a reason.
They're just,
social
secret society, fraternities.
Right. Well, okay. So if we think like this, and we asked our source, well, what's the, basically tell us more. I mean, keep going and tell us more. Well, we'll think about this. divide and conquer is the strategy. Of course, being dandelions, using that analogy of being dandelions, they only have to make a show of it, maybe take 10% or 5% or whatever percent, or a few big deal people out of the equation because of an event. What will that event be? Like I said, hey, what about a high-profile event like an attempt? Is that so far out of the realm of possibility? Of course it isn't. Okay, now comes the who and the when and the other parts of this, and this is something through research, investigation, and really talking with individuals who have this knowledge, to take our country out of the equation. Biblically, they would have to, of course, they can't do it militarily. So where are we the most vulnerable? The economic side of things. And have you noticed how many people now are coming around and saying, hey, wait, you know what? We can default. We can go bankrupt. We can be wiped out. The dollar can be wiped out. And as we said before, what's backing the dollar? Well, it's not gold. It's not silver. It's not it's not soybeans. It's the free flow of oil. And isn't it interesting that we are by proxy fighting a war in Syria? Well,
no, we're not.
What's the timeline on this? Well, yeah.
That war was... There's no declared war.
But what's the timeline on this? And again, what's the timeline in terms of their timeline, not ours? What's their perception of time? Well, if you think about this, the strategy, if you are a member of the Illuminati, for example, what year is it? Do you know what year it is if you're a member of the Illuminati right now? They're 12 years behind us, and by the way they figure their calendar. The most occult or the most adherent to the Illuminist thought process, it's actually, their New Year is actually April 1st, April Fool's Day. That's their New Year. So right now we are, if you were, a member of this globalist Illuminati group, it would be the year 2000, and of course April 1st marks the year 2001. Wow. Well, remember Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey? Anyway, they're laughing at us. The people the really power brokers are laughing at us. Well, if the New Year is the 1st of April, if their New Year in their mind is the 1st of April, so what does that mean? Well, they go by certain dates that are meaningful to them. Remember earlier in the program, 9/11 and all that? The New Year is important to them, but so is the run-up to the New Year. They hold a particular significance to the spring equinox, and they hold particular dates in the month of April to be very significant. For example, anytime like around April 22nd or the 11th, April 11th, because of the number 11 and April 22nd. Again, it's not important what you believe. It's not important if you think this is all hogwash. It's what they believe. So those are some dates to watch, but they also like to make a show of things. And this is, I'm going to close with this. They like to make a show of things. Remember the Olympic ceremonies? That was more of a satanic ritual and those are my words than anything else. But, the Super Bowl, didn't we all have this conversation about what happened at the Super Bowl, the various events, the halftime show, and all this being really odd, once again being odd for those with discernment. And for the first time in history, 13 minutes into the third quarter, the lights went out for 34 minutes. But 13 minutes into the third quarter, the lights went out. If you were a bad guy, if you were adherent to that line of thinking as an illuminist or someone in power and wanted to show the unwashed masses your power. Take out half the lights in the Super Bowl, cause a delay a game.
That's nothing, though.
But it's nothing to us. But if you look at how they think, their strategy, well, at any rate, look at the very. I guess I mentioned that only to.
I understand what you're saying.
Just look at the various things, not as something carved in stone, but look at them as dots, as potential dots. And again, I don't want to go too far out on the limb, but understand what's important to us or what's important to them is not necessarily. It wouldn't mean a hill of beans to us. But we're not looking at. I would consider us normal people. They aren't normal. Their thought processes aren't normal. But when does it all start? Start looking around springtime, the end of around the March 21st, 22nd area, and then go into April. Does that not coincide with the potential economic collapse? Does that not coincide? And even if it doesn't, well, there's other dates as well. But see, I guess what I'm trying to say is this. I would expect some sort of shot across the bow in the spring and something really to happen toward the end of the year, like October-ish. And don't forget, sometime in the fall, and don't forget, if you look at the economic charts over the last 100 years, when do all the major collapses and calamities happen with the economy? September, October. So it could fit. I don't know. I'm just saying that these are some of the things that have come up through extrapolation and research. The important thing is this: we are looked at as dandelions in a field of grass. They want to divide and conquer. They want to identify and vilify, and they want to set brother against brother. And that was part of the Super Bowl thing too. Brother against brother, was it not? Nathan talked about that last night.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
All right. So again, without going too far out, and we could examine this for a long time, I would just want to bring it back by saying this. Look at us as dandelions. Look at it from that perspective, and look at the fact that they want to make an example. They want to vilify and make an example out of some of us. They want us to fight amongst ourselves against the backdrop of an economic collapse. And that, folks, to me, is... Oh, and also throw in that big red potential reset action button as well to advance the gun ban agenda. As it was explained to us, perhaps not as eloquently, that's what we're witnessing right now. State versus state, brother against brother, divide and conquer. And the agenda does come up. And don't forget, 500 million people. That's their stated agenda. That's how many people they want on this earth. Depopulation. That's just, again, I just thought I'd mention that. I think it's important for us to understand that. I don't want to go too far, anymore. No. But Joe, you heard it too. So.
Yeah, and a few things I want to say on that is, and as it is important to understand the enemy's way of thinking, as it is important to understand why they do what they do in certain cases, and it does help us discern the times we are in. We need to be concerned about the Lord's timeline. We know these things are going to happen. There's nothing new under the sun. As I learned today about Nimrod, and I was talking with somebody earlier, and some of the things he carried out upon his people. It says in Nimrod's day, the unprecedented control he had, and he conquered everything around him. His military might and skill were complemented by his industrial strength, political savvy, and architectural and ecclesiastical genius.
Right.
This man was prepared for the call on his life, which is to supply the children of Adam from Cain's lineage with an alternative culture and religion from the one they inherited from their father and his father. Goes on to talk about the tyranny, the injection of sexual rituals and idolatry into the mainstream culture, defiling everything that is good in the name of God. This is the spirit we're seeing today. And going back to the deception that we will see and what form it will take, Jesus said this: if thou can't believe, all things are possible to him that do believe it. And when I say that in that context, what I mean is, don't discredit anything before considering it and taking it to prayer. The people who say, oh, when we mention the word alien invasion, that's not possible. Well, when you think about the context of aliens being either one of two things, angelic, heavenly, or demonic or evil, we can't put a cap on what might happen. We can't put a cap on the spirit of the Antichrist, which is ruling the world, trying to establish himself as the Most High God, trying to mimic what God has done. So knowing that the devil and the deceptions will be great during this time, that the devil or the culture of evil is and has increased on this earth, and the devil's intention to place himself as the Most High.
But see, what must be done? What must be done before that, though?
What, and this is where the speculation comes in, and you can go through timelines and events, and that's something we definitely have to look at through what is going on in the world. But we know the game plan. We know the ending of the game. If we were going to place bets in Las Vegas as to who wins this fight.
Well, certainly good prevails. We know that.
Correct. So, knowing good prevails, knowing that we need to be spiritually set, having a perfect heart and love for the Lord, which will cast out all your fear, knowing that there will come times of severe trouble, persecution, famine.
But wait, because you said something here earlier, and I want to address this, because you were talking about you did mention pedophilia and other sexual these perversions of what's normal, and yes. we're seeing this
about Nimrod, who is the first and the oldest, one of the oldest, the leader of the oldest cities of the world. Yes, he injected ritual sexuality, idolatry, and things, whole pollutions of sin.
Sure, but here's my point with this, and please understand, folks, understand this, because what are we seeing right now with the Vatican? Okay, because this draws the Vatican into this. We're seeing all sorts of allegations of pedophilia, of sexual perversity that has soaked into the Vatican, and what's taking place right now because of that? Now you're seeing an entire faith, the Roman Catholic faith, being absolutely sullied by these allegations of what? A few men?
That would be like condemning Christianity for the sins of a few men at the top of the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church.
And therein lies the strategy, because what the people at the top, what our enemies are attempting to do, is to destroy all Christian faith or Christian religions. You're talking about Roman Catholicism, you're talking about the Protestants, because all they have to do.
None of us are perfect.
No, but see,
none of us have the perfect practice of none of us have complete righteousness in our life.
Of course
not. And if you do, that's awesome. But hopefully all of us are working as hard as we can towards that goal, because that is what we were supposed to do. But what we're talking about now are these corruption scandals, these governments of evil, like American government is looked upon around the world as all of Americans are bad when it's our government. Israel is looked upon as being a horrible, tyrannical nation because people in their leadership are bad.
The Zionist component, right.
It goes along with everything. We cannot marginalize or stereotype a whole group of people, whether it be denominationally, racially, based on the actions of a few.
Exactly, but this is exactly what we're seeing. We are witnessing a trauma-based mind control on a global scale. Folks, please understand what I'm saying here. And Joe, you've got to understand what I'm saying. When you destroy the Vatican through these allegations, true or not, what is happening here is there's a program to break the faith. There's a program, and it's being done through trauma-based mind control on a global scale.
And I understand that. But anybody whose faith would be broken because of the actions of another person does not have a sound faith that they have established to begin with.
But that doesn't mean that that doesn't, and here, now this is a family table dinner discussion. That doesn't mean that we can't bring this to light, because maybe someone listening to this broadcast, a light will go off and say, wait a minute, that's right. Okay, now I understand. I understand what's happening. They are assailing all religions, all faiths, the Catholics, because of a few highly placed men at the Vatican. So now they're saying we've got to destroy the faith. We've got to break the faith of the people through, once again, what did we witness on 9/11? Trauma. What did we witness with Kennedy? Trauma. It's all trauma-based mind control, but it's on a global scale. And people say, I don't believe in mind control. Really?
Like you said, it doesn't matter what is believed. It does matter what is the truth and what is happening. And to speak to your point of the solution to this problem that all of us can work on and do better on, is praying for everybody.
Sure.
Is one thing. Having a loving heart, open to praying and trying to uplift and help everybody, not just our neighbors, our brothers, our family, our friends, but our enemies, trying to pray, uplift, and help those we might not agree with. We can't go through, as I stated at the beginning of the show, the title of the show, Transforming Foundations.
Right.
Our foundations and the listeners, for the most part, are strong.
But
if those are sound foundations,
if you're out there driving, I understand what you're saying, Joe. But if you listener out there are driving and you have in your foundation is shaky, or you've got this uncertainty in your heart, or you just don't know, we're speaking to you because now you can understand what's taking place, because there are people I know that we're preaching to the choir, but those aren't the people. The choir. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the person who's
and the choir.
Well,
we always need that
the reassurance, of course.
The reassurance. We need to hear the repetition of the mercy and the glory of the Lord, but to the people who are sitting on the fence.
But understand this: their goal is for a single global governance. They're going to do it through the monetary system and through the religious system. They've got to destroy our religion. They've got to destroy they've got to take away our faith in one true God in order to get us to worship their God, which is the wrong God, basically, or they've got to take religion out altogether. So the assault is not just on our monetary supply, it's an assault on our religion. It's our faith. I'm sorry, not religion, but our faith. And see, if you understand that, if somebody now understands that and says, "Oh, wait, I see what's happening," okay, then that's great. Then that's one person. 1 or 2 or 10 that will get to the point and say, hey, wait a minute. Everything, this is a lie. I mean, it's a huge lie. And I'm not talking about the allegations themselves. I'm talking about the methodology employed to make the allegations stick to an entire faith. That's the lie that is being used as a strategy. Joe, that's what I'm talking about. So we're on parallel tracks, but
right.
Okay, but what I'm saying to the people out there is, look, this is the strategy, and by understanding the strategy, you can then be introspective and say, well, wait, everything that I've been hearing and thinking and been rammed down my throat, okay, I get it now, that this is what their plans are. So in order to fight, in order to pray effectively, I think we have to know what to pray for and what to pray about. And to me, this makes it real, because when you look at this, and I have to go back to the Super Bowl. As an incarnation, just study the Super Bowl by itself and look at what happened there, or not the Super Bowl, but the Olympic ceremonies, and they showed their hand. They have showed their hand, just as Benghazi showed the hand of what was taking place in Syria and in the Middle East. The Olympics showed the plans of the people in charge, the globalists, and you know what? They're laughing at the people who aren't getting it. They're laughing at us, and we have to, put on our armor of God and understand what's taking place. That's what I'm saying.
And yeah, Michael, thank you. Michael in the chat says we need to do one thing I have not heard yet, and that is repent.
Of course.
While we are praying.
Absolutely.
And not only that, we need to pray for other people to come to repentance, to put their pride aside. Those sitting on the fence, those unsure, those are the people that we need to help the most, because these people are going to be, if not coming around to the Lord and His Word, are going to be the ones who fall in fear when things start to really happen. Their hearts will fail them. These will be the ones in the state of mental and emotional chaos.
But see, and here's what we're doing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was mentioned yesterday. It's been mentioned on numerous programs. Their hearts will fail them. Have you ever gone to a place, or have you ever been involved in something where you're going to get scared, okay, but you don't know it? But whether it be a trick played on you, or you're going to be afraid. Whatever the event is, it's meant to scare you. For example, whether it's your 6-year-old son jumping out of a cupboard when you're least expecting it, and you oh my goodness. See, what we are attempting to do is prepare you for what to look for, what to look at, so you're at least prepared when you go into that empty kitchen, or seemingly empty kitchen, and your 6-year-old or 7-year-old son thinks it's funny to jump out of the cupboard and scare you. If we say to you, look, when you go in there, I just want to tell you, your grandson is hiding in the cupboard and he's going to jump out and scare you. Of course, you think, maybe you're alone in the house. See, if you're prepared for that, then at least I mean, think about the difference between thinking you're alone in the house, walking into a dark kitchen, you turn on the lights, and bam, your grandson thinks it's funny and scares you. And really, holy cow, if you got, when you least expect it, versus being told at the door, hey, you know what, while you were out, Mary and little Johnny came home, and Johnny's hiding in the cupboard there, and he's going to jump out to scare you when you walk into the kitchen. Knowing ahead of time that that it's coming, doesn't that do something? Might that perhaps not save someone's heart from failing them by knowing that?
You would hope.
I would hope, sure. Or
we would pray.
Right. But if you knew that, let's say that you're talking to Aunt Martha, and Aunt Martha's got a really, really bad heart, and of course Johnny, little Johnny, grandson, no malice intended in this case, wants to be funny and scare Aunt Martha or Grandma Martha, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you get the drift here. So let's prepare people for what's coming, And did you just throw that at me? Oh, okay. I thought, folks listening to this, something dropped, and I thought Joe threw something at me, which it happens, actually.
No, you'd know you'd got hit.
Yeah, okay. It happens. But see, we want to prepare. And knowledge is preparation, and my people will perish for lack of knowledge. I just want to say that.
And the preparations are in the Spirit and the spiritual authority that is given to us as we become, as we take our cross and follow Jesus and are on fire for Jesus. We have authority.
Yes.
In our prayers. We have the ability to change things through our faith. And
Absolutely.
we can. It might not be on a global level, it might not be on a national level, but the smallest amount of change can work wonders.
Right.
It can start a chain reaction where we could never see the end of. And it is something we all need to think long and hard about and pray about mornings and nights, and whenever you have the chance, that you know what your task is for this day, and do it one day at a time, and make sure, because the Lord sacrificed his life so that all of our sins can be forgiven, so all of us can have everlasting life, all of us who choose to walk in his will and do his will.
Right on.
And you have to, there's obedience, and there's repentance, and there's a Holy Spirit that you have to have through your relationship, and that's the only way it will work. And like you said, preaching to the choir or not, we all need to hear this. We all need to be remembered of this. We all need to understand the sacrifice and going back to being grateful. Always should we be grateful for what we have, even in suffering. It should not take our joy or happiness away. It should not take our faith away. It should not take our tasks away. We need to remain strong in all and any situations. We're coming up against a break in a few minutes. We're going to be taking calls in the third hour. A few pieces of news. NBC skit has Jesus on a murderous rampage. Saturday Night Live spoofed famous Hollywood director Quentin Tarantino over the weekend with a gruesomely violent, fictitious movie trailer about Jesus wreaking bloody revenge upon the Romans who killed him. The parody reenacts a number of Tarantino's scenes with only Jesus, St. Peter, and other biblical characters shooting, beating, and slicing their victims, all while sprays of blood splatter the screen. That out of WorldNet Daily. Also, this Russian meteor was the largest in more than a century. The meteor that crashed into Russia was about 55 feet in diameter, 17 meters, about 10,000 tons, and was made of a stony material, scientists said, making it the largest such object to hit Earth in more than a century.
My question is this about the meteor. Why is NASA... Why did NASA pick this up? Why did it take? Well, okay, I guess you know what? I might be confusing two different issues. The DA-14 with this meteor.
Yes, we're gonna hit. We'll hit that first on the other side.
All right,
and then back to this before we hit the break. This new winter storm, Q, suspiciously named Q, as all these new winter storms are suspiciously now being named. Winter Storm Q will lay down a swath of significant snowfalls from the mountains of California all the way to the Midwest over the next several days. A disturbance dropping due south from the Gulf of Alaska will spread light rain and light mountain snow throughout the Pacific Northwest Monday night. The bigger impacts will begin Tuesday as the storm drops into California. And that's where the National Weather Service article or alert on this new winter storm ends.
Now, I want to say something about this. Remember, what was the last winter storm that was named? It was named Nemo. Right?
Yeah, Omen backwards.
Right. Now think about this. And again, I don't know who names these storms. When you think of Q, that Q is a fictional character in the James Bond films and film novelizations. Q, which stands for Quartermaster, like him, that's a job title rather than a name. But he, in the film, James Bond, he's the head of the Q branch, or later, as it's known, the Q division. The fictional research and development division of, you ready for this? The British Secret Service. Now, why is that important? Well, think about where the banking is done within that one miracle mile in banking in London, and Q being in the James Bond films, and we saw what happened at the opening ceremonies of the Olympics with the Queen, or a stunt double parachuting from a helicopter into the Olympics with none other than the person representing John D., famous for the James Bond character. Now, isn't that interesting? You know, you might think, well, what does it matter? Once again, it's just a display, in our view, my view anyway, it's a display of what's taking place. It's a display, it's a message out there, and you might think it's totally ridiculous, but is it really, when you've got Q being named as a storm?
Yeah, and we're going to see more of these storms with these odd names in the next few weeks, in my opinion. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 661-244-9839 is the number. We'll be taking your calls on the other side. Also, this story: scientists create a sixth sense brain implant to detect infrared light. Also, Chris Putnam will be a guest on Radio Preacher Man Show tomorrow night. You can find that on Blog Talk Radio from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Radio Preacher Man with Chris Putnam tomorrow night. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to direct you to our sponsor, this show, Grandland Firearms. That's GrandlandFirearms.com. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the link on the right-hand side. It'll take you to Grandland Firearms, located in beautiful Campbell River, British Columbia. Stop in and say hello to them if you can't. Do it virtually on the Internet. Tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you. They've got a tremendous inventory. Take a look at what they have. And yes, it is possible to ship from British Columbia into the United States via a firearm dealer, licensed firearm dealer, but it can be done. But they've got an assortment of other survival supplies, and it's just a great store run by great people. We love them. Tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you. Oh, and by the way, going to another one of our good friends, a Freeze Dry Guy, I just notified today that if you mention the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, they've got a new Freeze Dry Guy protein pack, Mountain House real freeze dried meats and packaway brand ABC Stew. Good through the end of the month. 20% back in survival bucks on all protein pack orders placed by the end of the month. Mountain House freeze dried foods. They're packed in 6 heavy-duty number 10 cans per case, and the oxygen is taken out of those cans. I got to tell you, it's good stuff. So, believe me, I tried it because I'm picky. You know, unless it's pizza. Well, even with pizza, I'm picky. But they've got top quality stuff. Mention Hagmann and Hagmann on your next order of freeze dry foods and get survival, or 20% back in survival bucks.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour this Monday, February 18th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, this President's Day, 2013. We're going to go right to the phones. We have several people on hold. 661-244-9839 as we're going to go through calls the rest of this hour, starting with, all the way from Bordeaux, France, Constance.
Oh,
you're live on the
hello,
Hagmann and
Doug
Hagmann
and
Report.
Joe.
Good evening, or good morning.
Good evening. Oh, good morning. You're on French time. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here. How are you?
We are wonderful. How are you doing?
Oh, I am fine. I would like to say that I've been very busy. We are trying to organize here in Europe. I will be traveling to Paris. I will be traveling to Rome. We are trying to organize coalitions to fight against the New World Order, because here in Europe we are very, very separated, and there's little groups that are doing things, and we would like to unite all of these groups together. So I am trying to arrange that here in Europe. I will be going to speaking to some people that are coming from Belgium in Paris next week. We are what we are asking for. We are asking for to sovereignty. Different countries. We want to get our sovereignty back. I'm meeting after that. I'm meeting in Italy. We are fighting against the New World Order, that they don't have any elected leaders leading the country. It is Mario Monti. We are fighting to get these people out of the country, and also austerity and the banks that are controlling our taxes and that are killing us. We are fighting against New World Order, and we are trying to organize the different independent groups throughout Europe to meet and to discuss how we can unite our forces and into one voice, because you in America, you have so many people, groups that are fighting, and organizations. You have Oath Keepers, you have Independent Radio, but we don't have that organization here in Europe, but we would like to organize that here in Europe, because things are going from bad, very bad, to extremely bad, especially in Greece. I don't know, I'm sure you know about what is happening in Greece. There are riots, there are, people are...
Food shortages.
Yes, there's massive food shortages in Greece. The middle class is totally destroyed, but this is following the IMF, 112-step plan on how to bankrupt the countries. And we would like to bring this information to different fronts of what is happening in these countries and why they are destroying the middle class like that. To make people, because we have a lot of groups, and people think that socialism is not the same thing as communism, but socialism, communism, oligarchy, dictatorship, that's all in one group. It's not separate. And trying to organize that here in Europe, and maybe eventually combining it with America and joining with different other countries in this, it would be a possibility.
Wow, Constance, you're doing a great job. I want to say this in case you haven't heard about this, but I'm sure you have. The co-chief executive officer of the Danish bank, Saxo Bank, said that the euro's recent rally is completely illusionary, and the shared currency is set to fail. And he said, and I quote, "The whole thing, meaning the economic system of Europe, is doomed." And of course, you know that, and so you're getting out. So tell us more. I mean, you're actually organizing. Do you have a group name or a website?
Yes, I have an agenda because next Monday, actually, I'm meeting with some deputies from the European Parliament. They have agreed to meet with me because actually here in Europe, the deputies, they have no power at all. They are there like a little bit, because all the laws that are being passed here in Europe the deputies write it, and then they have to send it to a commission, and the commission, depending on the lobbyists, Brussels after Washington is the number 2 place for the lobbyists. So actually, the deputies here do not have any power. It goes, all the laws that want to be passed are going to a commission, and the commission are saying, no, we don't want this, or yes, we're going to do that, and it's done mainly through the lobbies. So we are discussing with some deputies from Brussels. Next Tuesday, I'm going to meet them in Paris. They're coming down to meet. They have agreed to come down and to talk with me. We are going to be discussing things, what is exactly happening in the European Parliament, why things, because nothing is moving in the European Parliament. And then I'm going to go to Rome. We are going to Italy, and I've agreed to meet with some very important people who were ex-deputies in the European Parliament, and who is actually, it is some lawyers that have deposited cases against Bilderberg and Mario Monti in Rome, how they have deposited the complaints in the court justice system. So we are going to talk to them about what their movements, how we can arrange to inform the people, how we can get information out, because we are being clamped down here in Europe. Also, it's very important to do that. That's my magazine. I would like to do that in English to distribute here in Europe. And so we are going to be arranging in that, and also fighting on the front here in France, because I have given up working full-time on my job, and I'm dedicating now my activity. We are dedicating that to this, because this is most important, because if we do not fight against this, we are not going to have a future.
Oh, so right. And you are in the battlefield, or the heart of where socialism has taken over a nation, with the new leader you got just last year. You are seeing...
Well, you know, we have always had... It was never really... a democracy. We know that democracies, they end up dying themselves. We've never had a real democracy. It has always been a type of socialist government, Because when we say also like in America, left and right, there is no left and right, and none of the politics here in Europe. There is only one centralized government, and that's coming. Everything is going according to plan, according to Bilderberg, that these people that are controlling us. And that there's no left and there's no right and there's no center really in European parliaments, because all the bankers, all the people, all the puppets that they put are going according to what Bilderberg and everybody in Bohemian Grove, and we had Davos a few weeks ago. They are deciding what direction Europe is going. And
Exactly.
they are also deciding that 90% of us has to die also. And all these new technologies and things that they are doing, and brain and enhancing, there is no limit to that. There's no limit to that. And also what I find disturbing is you can speak with anybody on any topic here in Europe, but when you start to speak about God, the conversation, that ends right away.
Wow.
It stopped. Yes,
Wow.
it stopped. I don't care who it is or who you're talking to. You can talk about sex, you can talk about pedophilia, you can talk about education, you can talk about anything. But once you mention God in your conversation, okay, it's time to close the conversation. Nobody wants to hear it. People are laughing. And that is going on, I think, worldwide, because when you want to make, when you talk to people about a moral problem, there is a moral problem, because last week I called, I don't know, you must know, I don't know if you know, the pastor Manning in New York.
Oh, yes.
And,
David Manning.
I talked to him, yes, David Manning, and because there is a universal problem, not only in America, but also here in Europe. There's a deep-seated moral problem that we are suffering from, and trying to find remedies for this moral problem is deep-seated in our political problems. So we are working on that also.
It's amazing. Now, did you speak with Reverend James David Manning, or did you? I mean, did you actually talk to him and have a conversation?
Yes,
about
I actually talked to him. Yes, we talked to him, and it was about because also in your country in America, what you have divide and conquer, and what that is the masses between black and white. And nobody criticizes Michelle and Barack Obama, the white people, because they are afraid of being stigmatized as racist. And also the black people, they don't criticize Obama because they're afraid of being looked as traitors. And I think we should start talking about discussions of how to reunite these fronts, and people should realize that if you are criticizing Barack and Michelle Obama, who are two very, very, very evil people, that you are criticizing their character and what they are doing, because what they are doing is very bad, and not a question of racism, as all the television stations are doing, and all the CNN and NBC, and people have to differentiate between saying what is wrong and color. And I think we was talking to a point about uniting how we could. It's going to be very difficult of getting people to all these movies that are coming out, and that Lincoln and Tango, or what are these movies that are coming out, promoting racism and things like that. It's going to be very difficult to fight against.
Well, you bring up some interesting points. Constance, do you have a website or any type of online presence?
We are trying to design a website. We intend to do that, but I've been so busy. I will have to finish that because everybody is asking about that, and so we are going to be. I will be doing that when I come back from Paris. It's very important that people have a place where they can go online and see what we are doing and contact and send us information also.
Well, let me do this, and I offer you our website if you want to publish anything in terms of where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, and if you're looking for support, people to be present at whatever, just send me a private email, and we'll get the word out there to everyone as best we can. So, because we all have to work together.
Yes, that's true. Yes, we will have to work together if we want to fight this. Because I made it very clear. I told everyone, if America falls, we can say good night here in Europe also, because for us, America has always been land of the free. If any trouble here in Europe happens, we can always go to America. But that is disappearing, America was always our joker in the pocket, kind of. Sure. I have to say. But now that is becoming more and more and more very far away in our thoughts, because the problems that America is having, we're going to have to start uniting our different fronts and fighting these people, because the same people that controls you are controlling us also. Well, wow. Thank you very much. I'll let you get on to the next calls. I just wanted to get this information out, and I will be making our website.
Okay, and to our European listeners, that's Constance. And Constance, one more time, you're going to be going to Paris and Rome. Is that
I'm correct? Going to be next Tuesday. I will be in Paris, okay. And then on the 7th of March, I will be in Rome. And then after that, I will have to see where we're going to that and who we will be meeting. It depends if I can get some cooperation and things rolling.
All right. Well, look, be sure to keep us informed as to your progress. We'll be looking for updates. God bless you, Constance.
Thank you very much, and God bless you, too.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Joe, that's the French resistance.
Our French correspondent?
Yeah, exactly. But French resistance, I mean, we're talking behind enemy lines. Wow, that's great. See, and I don't want to say if they can do it, but I mean, if Constance can do it, and this is by no means minimizing her at all or diminishing her, but see, it takes one. No, that's all it takes.
Anybody can do it.
Anybody
can do this. Anybody can help get information out, can spread the solutions, the answers to the problems. It's a matter of people's willingness to listen.
Right. Exactly.
And one thing she did say, which in her case, in where she lives, about the democracy, I've noticed a disturbing trend from Bloomberg Radio to even people on Fox News Radio referring to America as a democracy.
Mob rule.
I mean, when did that ever... I mean, I understand the language out there and the rhetoric is aimed at changing the way people understand this country works. I have always been a republic. We will always be a republic, or at least their illusion of that now. We have never been a democracy. We never will be a democracy. But these people who call themselves journalists refer to this country as a democracy. So,
but see, and one last thing before the next call, isn't it funny how the English language is being just being totally annihilated? I mean, decimated.
No, it's not funny.
It's by no accident. I mean, this is to degrade our communication abilities, and people might say, well, what's the big deal? It's a huge deal when you start affecting our language and it's a pattern, it's a continuing course of conduct that is eroding our society. And language is important. Words are important. How we express ourselves is very important. We don't do it by LOLs or LF, whatever, or whatever the other acronyms are. But today, it's a sorry state of affairs when you have young people that express themselves in these 3 or 4 letter, 5 letter non-words.
It's not even that. I mean,
they can't even
carry on the conversation.
Jim Paris sent me an email about an educational test from like 70 years ago till today, and the difference is stunning. But yeah, let's move on to another call.
I saw that, by the way, and we should publish that.
We're going to go to Alex first, then Pam, Scott, and Sheila, and Dave. Alex, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Mr. Hagmann. Hi, Mr. Hagmann.
Hey, what's up?
How you guys doing tonight?
Very well. What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, man, things you guys talked about. You guys got a great show going, man.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
I wanted to talk about New Year for a minute, if I could.
Sure.
There's nothing I can bring out of the scripture that could make people look at it from my perspective. I guess the only thing I could really do is just try to explain, from my perspective. Like when we go into the scripture, it tells us that during the New Year that Passover was celebrated. So, when we look at that in the real world, and we take the concept of new versus old, and we know that we celebrate New Year during December when the trees are dead, there's snow on the ground, the grass isn't growing anymore, the bushes don't bud flowers or anything like that, and the concept that we visually see is actually kind of old, actually, as death would be. If you considered the 4 seasons, times of life or something like that, that would be the end of life. But we, as a society, view it as time of New Year.
Right.
But spring rolls around. Now I want you to think about a child. When a child comes out new, it's birthed. There's a freshness to it. When spring rolls around, the earth, there's a birth, there's a freshness to it. Technically, just by the signs that the seasons show us themselves, spring would technically be New Year.
Okay. Wait a minute. Say that again. What would be technically New Year?
Spring.
Okay.
And all the nature is new.
Right. Okay. For example, what you're saying, it would be like the spring equinox being like the start of the real practical New Year.
There you go.
Okay, I understand. So where are we going with that?
Well, if you think about how we celebrate things at different points in the earth, the clock strikes 12 in this place, and these people are celebrating, and so forth. It's almost like it's a false celebration for something that either doesn't really exist or it exists on another level that, as a just common man, I truly don't understand. But the understanding would have to lie in the people that created the idea or a spell that New Year's is actually during the winter.
Okay, so I think we're looking at like and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if I could extrapolate from what you said, look like a paganistic style ritual is what we're looking at here. Is that what you're getting at?
Mr. Hagmann, you say it better than I do.
Well, thank you for that. I'm not sure of that, but so okay. So where do we go from here, though? I mean, in other words, because see, during the program, I said, according to the Illuminati, for example, their New Year's April 1st. That's when they begin their New Year, and of course, their calendar. According to their calendar, we're still in 2000, in the year 2000. Now,
that's an interesting point too.
So now, how they calculate that, I don't know.
Well, they've controlled time. Okay, they've created the Gregorian calendar. They've known what time what the calendar was before the Gregorian calendar.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I get that.
You're told that Christ died at what, 0?
Well, yeah, that was essentially yes, but
no,
he was born at. I'm sorry, he died in 33 A.D. according to the Gregorian calendar.
Right, correct. Okay, I just had to stop and think there for a moment. So, which ultimately, because of the change in the calendar systems, and we had a show about this too, where we talked about the actual birth of Jesus. When was he born? Well, according to the best astronomical evidence, he was born sometime between 4 and 3 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, in the fall, and most likely, one could make the argument he was born on September 11th, between 4 and 3 BC, based on the Gregorian calendar, not the calendar, of course, at the time. Now, that said, that brings into a whole lot of things into play, but that's what does that mean? Well, I don't know precisely. But
on one level of chronological history, that just the point that you brought up means that there's either 2 or 3 missing years that are unaccounted for a modern man.
Exactly. And it's interesting how over time the calendars can be changed or had been changed to fit various agendas or to fit it's just if you, I mean, these are things you don't think about every day. And thankfully, otherwise you'd be really, you'd be a real kook to think about this all the time. But we know that time has been manipulated for a purpose. And so you bring out a good point there. You're bringing out some very good points. But, still, I'm not sure where, aside from the paganistic part of this, where to go with this.
Like you always, every time I listen to you, you always bring up a good point. Why? And that's the key to everything.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, right. I just said why is that drives people nuts, because I want to know why for everything. I mean, that's me.
What if I told you, I'm just one guy, you don't have to blame me, but what if I told you our whole system that we're based on is corrupt?
Oh.
The things that we've been taught are completely untrue. Okay? Look, this Bible, it talks about the Lord's Day being the 7th day. Right. It's called the whole world goes to church on Sunday, the first day of the week.
Okay.
I mean, you got to look at the bigger picture.
Which is
Isaiah 14 and 12. Satan curbed the prayers of the Lord so that he could be God of the world.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now I see where. So, what you're saying is we are actually worshiping, or we're celebrating the Sabbath on a Sunday as Christians, when we should be celebrating the Sabbath on a Saturday, based on the, I don't want to say calendar, but based on, well, yeah, I guess I could say calendar.
On the Scripture.
On the Scripture.
Because the calendar never changes. You go to a business calendar, it always says Sunday's the first day of the week. You ask a modern kid today, he'll say Monday's the first day of the week because he's living off the business calendar.
Right.
So
interesting. Well, now, does that does it matter? And I'm asking this not rhetorically. Does it matter which day we celebrate the Sabbath?
Yes. The Lord says, "I change not."
Ah, okay.
Decide for us.
Okay. All right.
And told over and over through Scripture is the sun god. It's his direct enemy. And we go to church on the day that the Romans made to worship the sun.
Okay, then let's take it a step further. Then when you called initially, you were talking about the new year. We can also then look at Christmas as being really a ritualistic pagan holiday, and a great argument can be made for that.
Yeah.
The symbolism of Christmas, the Christmas tree,
not only that, a sound biblical and scriptural argument can be made against that.
Right. So what do we do?
Very much so. Kids believe in Santa Claus before they believe in Christ. But the real thing about Christmas that no one really knows is if you go to the book of Jashir, or Yashir, however you pronounce it, a book that you're told in the Bible was taken out of the Bible by the Catholics. If you go to this book, it'll tell you that this started in Sodom and Gomorrah, and you can read by the actions that the people took, that they did. You know, I don't know if you have time, but I could always go to the bookshelf and grab the book. You know, I got the page marked. But it told you what they did. And their sexual acts, as you brought up earlier, Joe, with the dealings of Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar, their sexual acts that they did was what the holiday was really about. And this led up to Saturnalia,
right,
which led into what we call today Christmas.
Exactly. And so you're correct in, and people might find this very difficult to comprehend, but Christmas is, as celebrated today, based in pagan ritual, and as is, and I'll give you this too, as is Sunday, based in, it has its roots in paganism, and I do understand that. But boy, this whole thing is a conversation. We could do an entire show on this because there's so much meat here. Indeed, that there's deception all around us. Wow, okay. No, I mean you brought up some very, very good points, and you're on the money with that, because I do believe the deception is very wide and deep with both the Sabbath and the Christian holidays, or the Christian days of celebration, I should say more accurately. So yes, we are living in, the lie is very deep, and it's very wide.
Well, thank you both, brothers, for your time tonight.
God bless you, my friend.
Thank you.
Always interesting to talk with, to talk on that. And you know what, Joe? The caller really is correct. If you do, if you do the calculations, or if you look at the respectable calculations done by responsible individuals, yes.
Yeah, this is a topic that we could spend a whole show on. Is it right or wrong to practice Christmas the way we do? Is it right or wrong to go to church on Sunday? But just before we don't have time to get into all that today, but every day should be a day with you and the Lord.
Of course.
The Sabbath day is special to rest, to your work, your duties of labor.
Yes,
to spend more time with the Lord.
And it goes back into it also has connections to the Jews and the 7 years and the 7, but nonetheless, and it's interesting too, because if you really study this, and I won't belabor the issue, but if you study this, even Santa Claus, the reindeer, the flying reindeer, it's underneath the conifer trees. You know how you have the flying sleigh with Santa Claus beneath it. Well, there are certain mushrooms that if you don't know, folks, what I'm referring to, you can do your own research on it. It's absolutely fascinating to see where a lot of these so-called traditions that we celebrate, where they originated, how they originated, and how they are promoted even today. But like you said, Joe, we could do a program, multiple programs on this, but we've got to move along.
There are questions and comments such as, just to give you one, for example, let me get my screen scrolling. It says, "We are not under the law. Christ fulfilled the law with his coming." And there are people who believe this, and there is Bible verses that say, it frees us from the law, but we still have an obligation of obedience.
Right.
And to say that it's not important because the law was done away with, well, is stealing and murder and adultery okay? Is my question. But that is something we can do a show on specifically on another day. We'll go back to the phones. And thank you for your patience. We're going to go to Pam next, and then to Scott. Pam, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi. You there?
Hi, Pam. Yeah, we're here.
Hi. Well, real quick, I just wanted to say that when Barack was made the Nobel Peace Prize winner, on paper, I guess that makes him the man of peace. And this year, the Passover begins on sundown of the 25th of March, and the new moon falls on the 11th of March. So when Barack arrives in Israel on the 20th, that's the 10th day from the new moon. So in Israel, that day is the day that the unblemished lamb is going to be chosen for the sacrifice for the Passover. So he will touch down in Israel on the day that the Passover lamb is being chosen. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Now, that is interesting. Look,
I mean,
wow.
He hasn't been to Israel, and he's going to Israel on the day that the Passover lamb is chosen for the sacrifice.
Now, see, okay, and here's where I drive people nuts. Why that day? Why out of all the, why that
it's
day?
It's also vernal equinox.
Right.
So.
Correct. So, and once again, we can go down too many rabbit trails, or we can just look at this and accept it for what it is. But I choose to ask the question why and look at it from a different perspective, because of how things are structured, and because of the belief systems of others. Because I'd like to know if we're fighting evil, and that evil is incarnate or is in the man. I like to know what we're fighting. I like to know their strategy, so I might have a leg up on perhaps what we're fighting against. So that's kind of why I ask those questions. But that's an interesting point. And I'm sure we're going to be delving more into that, Pam.
I just thought that was pretty ironic that he hasn't been to Israel all this time, and that he's been on paper made the man of peace, and he touches down at the time that the Passover lamb, the unblemished lamb, is chosen for the sacrifice.
Well, I wonder if Netanyahu is going to make him wait while Netanyahu and his spouse have dinner in their residential quarters, like he did.
Palm Sunday's the 24th.
Right.
Okay. I'm just these, whatever. It's just, I mean, you have to kind of wonder if they thought this out for him to go at that time, or if this is just the way the Lord is moving it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
it's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I really think, regardless, I think God does have a hand in
exactly.
In events. So, very astute.
Anyway,
Thanks, ma'am.
That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, ma'am. God bless.
Bye.
As always, a lot of good information, Joe, from our callers. They're.
Yeah.
I got to say this. I have a friend who is an investigator who said, I listen to a lot of talk shows, but your callers have more insight than the average caller will say, like on a Rush Limbaugh or a Sean Hannity, and I really believe that, because they're taking their time out. You as callers are taking your time out, and listeners to listen to the show, whereas others are passively listening. You're actively listening, and I want to thank you for that.
All right, we're going to move right along here on the phone calls. Scott, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Wow, Mr. Hagmann and Hagmann, the past couple shows are just so fascinating with the information. Blessed is his name. I just want to start by saying, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of the Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation for those who believe.
God bless you for that. And no one should be ashamed of their belief, and as they walk in the Scripture, and that's something that real men, and I mean this, real men are not ashamed at the name of Jesus. They bend the knee at the name, and that's what we should all do. So God bless you for saying that.
Going on from that, I pray for the faithless people. They're just like children, and we should treat them as such. They're emotionally immature, and we should never, ever be apologetic for having spiritual maturity in Jesus Christ.
Interesting. I like the way that was framed. Spiritually immature, spiritual maturity. But do we develop into that, Scott? Do we develop into that?
I've gone up and down. After my brother died, I backslid away from the Lord, and here I am again, stronger than ever. I'm sober. I'm alive in the Spirit right now, just listening to your show, and blessed the work you're doing, and again, bless the name of Jesus. To go back to what you were talking earlier about Jesus' real birth date, we're not even really supposed to focus on when Christ was born, but if we're going to look at it traditionally, it would have been during the Feast of Tabernacles. But to go back to, it's not about Jesus' birth. Who cares when Christmas is? It's about the work he did on the cross. And I was reading in the Bible today about Passover, and it's just amazing how the God works. This is all right on. And the old way of doing it was the lamb was chosen, and you smear the blood above your doorstep, and the Lord passed over your house so your firstborns don't get killed. But by Christ being the sacrificial lamb, he did that work on the cross. We no longer need the Passover. We're washed with salvation in the blood of Christ. And that's where we put our focus. Christmas, and I mean, that's one huge rabbit hole, and I'm sitting there getting so excited. But again, let's just leave it at that, and I'll talk about that in another show. The star named Q. There was also a Star Trek fictional omnipotent being named Q. He was very menacing in his attributes, and I just think that's kind of ridiculous. There's only one God, and his name is Jesus Christ.
Absolutely, and I want to thank B for sending me an email about that too, as well. But no, you're exactly correct. The omnipotent Jesus Christ, absolutely, and that's what we should focus on. And let's do that in mass. Let's do that as a. Let's do that together, because that's what we need to do, because our faith is going to be tested, and the times are going to, we're entering into that faith testing time now. So we need to do that. God bless you, my friend.
Thanks, Scott.
God bless you guys. In Jesus' name.
Always a good caller, Joe. Scott's a very good, very well versed in the Scripture, and very well grounded in the Scripture.
We're going to go to Sheila next. Sheila, thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
I got a question for you. Back when Mr. V and Steve was on your program, didn't Mr. V say that the Fed had their eye on people's IRAs and that they wanted to put them into a 401k? And they wanted to put them in an IRA?
Yes. Okay. I think I still have the article here. U.S. government plans, let's see, they wanted to
kind of like
manage your pension and 401k. I have the article. I'll find it.
Yeah, a lot of what he said, Sheila, a lot of what he said that day is coming out. It has come out already. So,
well, here's the interesting thing. This is why I asked you that, because I wasn't sure whether or not I misunderstood him. Friday and today, I know who all these people are that advertises the gold on TV. Gold Line. There's two other ones. Anyway, what are they advertising right now? Turning your gold over into an IRA investment.
Oh, you know what? I saw that, and I absolutely.
How interesting!
Wow.
How interesting is that? Take your gold investment and turn it into an IRA.
Folks, how would that work? I mean, how would that work exactly?
It wouldn't.
No.
If anything, they'll just take it.
Well, I mean, what would be the point? To me, if you had a gold bar, that is your IRA, or a gold coin, or whatever, or silver, whatever precious metal. I mean, that's your IRA. That is your hedge against inflation.
I don't know nothing about gold or nothing about that stuff, but I know this much. they evidently think the people are stupid enough to buy into it, and I got to question their advertising. Don't they know what it all means?
Oh, absolutely, they know what it means.
I just can't. Just deceitful, you know. I look at them and I think, don't you people realize what's going on here? And all of a sudden they're coming up with this crap with the take your gold and invest it in an IRA, and it just totally took me back to what Mr. V was saying.
Absolutely, and you're very astute for recalling that. I keep pretty meticulous show notes, and I don't have them in front of me, but from that broadcast, I got to tell you, a lot of things that he did say have come to pass, and we're living in some very precarious financial times, and that's why I always say too, Sheila, you know, during the program, how are your preps? Have you gone out and got it, like, you know, when you go to the store, grab an extra can of soup or 2 or 3 or whatever's on sale, because we're going to see this inflation in our food prices. We are going to be affected so heavily. If you can't afford gold, I mean, I can't afford gold, so I mean, most people who can afford to drop whatever $1,500 or however whatever it is on an ounce of gold.
I can buy gold if the Federal Reserve would throw a printing press over in our direction.
I was going to say, if you got some gold, give me some.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, yeah. So even and you bring up a good point about that, about the IRA and gold. That's something that we're going to have to look into as a. What are they attempting to do here? What's going on?
They're attempting to rip everybody off. Is what Mr. V said. They got their eye on everybody's 401ks, everybody's pension. From what I read, they said it was like $2.3 trillion in pensions out here, and they got their eye on them all.
So they're just going to go through and essentially take everything we have.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you know what? The Lord said, the wealthy, gold and silver, will lay in the streets like plunder.
Yeah, well, and we have to be very wise with, look, if you're like, and honestly, you know, we're all in a very tight situation economically. Our family budgets are strained to the limit. We have to really be good stewards with our money, and we have to be very frugal and understand we cannot afford to fall for things like that, or for things that are not going to keep us safe.
But if Mr. V hadn't put that out there, Doug, would nobody know it?
That's true. That's very true.
Nobody would know it.
Yeah.
That's why they've gotten away with so much of their crap.
Well, by the way, we hope to have him back on again. We're working on that to have him back on and to give us the latest, because there's so much happening in the financial world. We need that insight. So
yeah.
All right.
It's
wow.
getting really ugly.
Good.
All right. Well,
good
I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you, Sheila. God bless you. You
God
take
bless
care of
you
yourself.
guys.
All right.
Okay.
Wow.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You know, Joe, wow, that's something, isn't it? You know, how they would... the levels of deception here.
In September 2009, Obama announced several new steps to make it easier for American families to save for their retirement, including expanding opportunities for automatic enrollment in 401k retirement savings plans and improved ways to save tax refunds. This is a Treasury fact sheet, helping American families achieve retirement security by expanding lifetime income choices. Basically, you put your 401k under the control of the Treasury, and they'll do a better work of saving your money for you than you can.
Of course.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
And I recall the financial situation in America in the 80s and even in the 90s, and how things changed when the financial laws changed with the once the Glass-Steagall Act was basically, well, not basically, was blown away. and of course the GLB Act, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act came into play, and of course other things. So what we're looking at here, and I think this is it's so important for people to understand. This has been orchestrated. Where we're at today has been orchestrated, not over the last 4 years, but over the last 40 years, over the last 100 years. What we're seeing today is the culmination of a multitude of efforts to put us right where we're at today. And are we on schedule? I think, or are they on schedule? And I think they are. They meaning, the bad guys, so to speak. They're on schedule for a takeover and the plundering of America. So,
yeah,
there you go.
We got a few minutes left. We're going to squeeze in one more phone call. We're going to go to area code 912. 912, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Very well.
Actually, I wanted to hurry up and squeeze in the what everyone was talking about as far as the Jewish feast days and how Obama's supposed to be over there. Did you know that Jesus actually did the same exact thing? Before he actually went and got crucified on 6 days later on first fruit, that he went to Egypt. I mean, he went to Israel 6 days before the Passover.
Well, isn't that interesting in light of some other things we talked about tonight?
Yeah, and then the Pope getting the Vatican getting the lightning strike twice, and the last Pope, Patrice Ramonis, and how they're trying to get him in before the Passover. And now you got the President of the United States, he's coming 6 days before the Passover, just like Jesus did. And, the news media, how they've been saying his second term was called the quote-unquote second coming, and how they always been trying to put him on this God type of, level. They even had a news clip where they were saying that he was bending over America as if he was, God. So I'm saying, Satan, knowing the scriptures more than some of the Christians, if this is something that will be looked at as far as people that really look into the scriptures, if they're trying to reiterate something, because the Antichrist, anti means in place of, to be, to replace Christ, would be someone that would think they were Christ themselves. So I'm saying it just seems really interesting that all of these things will happen, the meteor sightings, the lightning, the Pope coming down, all the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, and now he's coming on this particular time, like the previous caller said, has never, been to Israel since 2008 when he was running for president. He comes at this time on this particular date and this particular year. It seems like it's something that, we should be looking for.
Wow. And I don't think that this can be done by man. This scheduling, the confluence of events. Personally, I don't think that man has maybe the capability, but certainly not in their entirety to do this. So you bring up some interesting points. 6 days. And then we witnessed, or 6 days, and then, of course, the crucifixion. And once again, I will say, in light of what we talked about in the opening of the second hour of the program, could this be possibly some sort of, dare I say it, go out there on the limb and looking at this, could there be a built-in message here? And could there be something else at play? Wow, man, I'll tell you. That's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, first time, too, in Israel. And, anything else that strikes you as odd? I mean, not that that's not enough, but is there anything else on your radar that you happen to be focused on?
Honestly, it's the feast days, because God always does stuff on appointed times. And in the beginning, when it talks about God creating the moon and the stars, he said that he created these for seasons. And the Hebrew word for seasons is moedim, which is appointed time. So the Hebrew
90 seconds
did these things on the appointed times that God gave them, and God did these things on his appointed times. Because Jesus, he died on Passover, then he raised on first fruits. He did all the things on Jewish feasts, all of the things, even when he came back to give the Holy Spirit, the Pentecost. That was 50 days later. which is also another feast that was already practiced thousands of years before Jesus came. So I believe those feast days, these days are something that an investigator or watchman
60 seconds.
It's one of those, signals, I believe.
Right, it's kind of a dot on a chart. Caller, we got to cut you loose. We're at the end of the program. I want to thank you so much for your call. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone for listening. You have listened to the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report on this, the 18th day of February 2013. We're going to close out. Joe,
God bless you, caller. Thank you for your call.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. You take care.
We have to close out, my friend. So, Joe, closing comments tonight?
My closing comments are that, we covered a lot of things here tonight. Most importantly, I think, is the spiritual discernment, the time to get disciplined in the Word and in our faith.
All right. And Neil,
10 seconds.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for everything you've done to help us stay on the air, for your prayers, for your letting other people know about the program. God bless you. Keep you safe. Hit your knees tonight. Say a prayer, repent, and pray for
everyone.
Just pray for everyone.
And callers that we missed, you guys call back tomorrow. We'll put you on the front of the line. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.